Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock. Let's go over what's happening in the market with Apple and Amazon reporting earnings today. As you can see, down, a fair amount, we'll say, not a crazy amount, but a fair amount, right? So it's bringing back down the market a tiny bit after hours. But yeah, let's go over Tesla. Let's talk about what happened today, what we can expect moving forward, all that good stuff. If you enjoy, please don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you're interested in my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, updates, I do share my thoughts, post updates with members every single day the market is open. These were just the posts from today, by the way, so definitely check it out. Just $3 a month. Again, link is below. It's the YouTube membership where you can click the join button and join up. Yeah, or $5 a month gives you access to the second tier, which includes NVDA if you're interested as well. But Tesla closing the day down, unfortunately, 0.6%, pretty much neutral, closing at just above $280 per share. So let's start off with the 1 hour chart actually this time. Let's start with the 1 hour chart here. So let's see what the hell happened today, right? What can we expect moving forward into tomorrow, next week, etc. So the way I look at it is pretty simple, honestly, pretty simple. So, I think I mentioned this one yesterday, but we're inside this seemingly bullish flag, descending channel, essentially the same thing in this current context at the end of the day. Now, what to notice here is this, right? And this is, so we pushed up towards the upper end of the spectrum once again. You can see we got rejected 3 times there, obviously each time being a lower high, right? And then of course we set fresh lower lows as well. So based on this current formula, right, based on the current pattern, if you will, naturally you would expect, based on the two things, the fact that we're in this kind of, pretty much a descending channel as of right now, and also with the fact that we're making lower lows, lower highs as of right now, you would expect that, technically speaking, until proven otherwise, the next move is to, well, come back down all the way to the bottom end of the channel one more time, potentially at least one more time, I should say, make a fresh lower low. And, you essentially continue that chain of events until proven otherwise, right? It's that simple at the end of the day, right? And that's essentially what I expect. I expect Tesla to most likely show some pain. I do expect some pain to start coming in. I expect us to most likely have a potential, decent sell-off, back down to maybe high 260s. And that's kind of my first main target. Now, if things get uglier, then my main target below that, if we lose pretty much this bull flag / descending channel, which, I don't think we will, but in case we do, if it happens, too quickly, for instance, or something like that, we could definitely see a move back down lower to about this sort of 260 itself, closer to like on the dot level, to retest that breakout, that we had right over here, where you can see we had plenty of, if I zoom in over here, let's take a look over here. We have plenty of resistance around this general vicinity right over here. You can see resistance here, breakout. So coming back down to refresh this area for fresh liquidity, wouldn't be a complete surprise either. So those are my main 2 levels to the downside. And, for the upside, if there's any upside to be had, which I think there will eventually, I'll go over more of that on the daily and the weekly, we have to pretty much break out of this, descending channel / bull flag, which in other words, will be pretty much breaking out of roughly that low-ish 290s, right? So those are the main things to watch for moving into, the next few sessions potentially, right? So in other words, again, short term, I am leaning more on the bearish side, but medium term-ish, I actually do lean more bullish. Also, and this is what I shared with the members as it was happening. I don't know if I can find the post. I think it was this one here, actually. Perfect timing. I'm still sensing some level of buyer, this was 7 hours ago, by the way, this was like closer to the morning. I'm still sensing some level of buyer exhaustion on Tesla here on the 1 hour. It's pushing up with a MACD cross bearish on the upper end of the spectrum here, similar to the left side I circled, which if I open it up, I'll show you. Similar to the left side I circled, if it can break the 293 to 5 range, then it's a different story as usual, but as of right now, it has an exhaustion look to me, right? This is what I share with our members, saying how it looks very similar to back here, and what do you know, it ended up actually being pretty much more or less, so far at least, that. And again, that essentially means that you can see the MACD here, right? As it crosses to the bearish side on the 1 hour time frame here, we push back up. But the thing is as we push back up, it sort of just kept moving down slowly. Not only did it not cross back to bullish, but it also just overall, the lines, you can see they kind of just kept slowly moving overall net down, which again is just another form of a bearish divergence-ish, right? But essentially what that just shows me is essentially, well, buyer exhaustion. Did I say seller exhaustion? I don't know if it says seller exhaustion. I meant buyer exhaustion. Hopefully I said buyer exhaustion. Yeah, I did say buyer exhaustion. Anyways, so that's kind of the short-term perspective, right? On the kind of the more 1 hour time frame, right? No reason, in my opinion, to get overly, not financial advice, just my opinion, overly bullish just yet. Short-term, again, this is short-term. However, the daily and even the weekly could be painting a bit of a different picture. So let's take a look at the daily, right? I like the daily quite a bit here. The daily and the weekly both look promising. Honestly, they look promising. Now, going back off of very quickly what I said on the 1 hour, where I do lean short-term-ish bearish, right? Another reason for that is also because on the daily, the market bias is all the way down here and we're all the way up here. Again, you don't, unless you have, a literal historic level sell-off, which again, this doesn't usually happen. This was an anomaly for sure, but nonetheless, you don't usually stay away from it that long, or that far rather, for too long without at the end of the day reverting back to the mean, right? So in other words, that's why I'm also kind of a little bit more in the shorter term bearish perspective. But the bullish overall perspective, if we zoom out a little bit more past, the next few days and look, let's say in 2 weeks from now, like what can it look like in 2 weeks from now? Maybe 3 weeks from now, something like that. Let's say around the middle of May, roughly, right? Again, I'm not gonna give exact timelines. I don't know how long it'll take. Could be faster, it could be longer. I don't know. But we'll just say around middle of May-ish, right? Maybe May 20s, something like that, right? I do expect Tesla to be somewhere around here in the 300s. I do expect the 300s to be revisited by Tesla. I'd be pretty surprised if it isn't, to be completely honest with you. But the reason for that is because the daily looks pretty nice. We had a nice double gap and go, right? A gap here. I think this one got filled actually. This one didn't get filled. So this one was a double gap and go. These two gaps right here, unfilled, right? This one down here and this one right here. Gap, didn't fill. Gap, didn't fill. Which is good, actually, believe it or not. I think that's actually bullish, believe it or not. But also the bull flag, right? This is just, I view this as a very, very large bull flag, right? Massive pivot point from down here, massive, massive rally. Naturally, you're not just gonna, some people, they think that you just do this and you go sideways for a day or two and you just go back up. Now, obviously in more rarer occurrences, that is a possibility, like when we had this, massive rally here, of course, but that's not the usual outcome. It's not the usual case. It's not the usual path, right? So in other words, what I'm seeing right now is just a very large bull flag potentially setting up here, where we had a nice, massive push up, got a little bit overextended into a massive area of resistance. Perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong about that, right? There's nothing concerning about that, in my opinion, at least. But as we zoom in and over here further, this just looks like a massive bull flag, which is essentially the same thing roughly that I was showing here on the 1 hour chart. It's slightly different looking, but the main idea behind it is the same. Bull flag, bull wedge, where I expect it to essentially consolidate within this area and then eventually break out. But again, this could take time. This can absolutely take time. This can take easily until, the second week of May or something like that. Absolutely. Like I don't know when it'll happen. I mean, I'm pretty confident it will blast to the upwards sometime in May. But as of right now, I expect it to essentially more or less continue sort of consolidating, getting tighter, getting, into this bull flag to the apex, roughly you can say, of it before breaking out higher, something like that, right? Another thing I'm looking at is also when we had this massive sell-off right here, it happened on slightly lower volume. You can see the volume decrease as we were selling off, pretty good. And then as we pumped, the volume increased, pretty good. Now what I want to see is if indeed we do get this sort of, tightness, consolidation for the next few days, up to a week or something like that, give or take, of course. I want to see ideally the volume to overall net decrease as we consolidate, and that to me will be the chef's kiss, because that would, you really couldn't make a better situation unfold than that. Massive rally, massive breakout from this trend line here, nice, slightly increase in volume on that breakout, at least relative to what it was just before, into a consolidation for a bull flag, get tighter, volume decreases outside of that area, and then you blast off. You really can't make this up. Like that truly would be perfection. It really would be. And that's going to be the main thing I'll be looking at moving forward. The daily MACD is still bullish on my settings that I have, right? I have specific settings that are, in my opinion, better. And then that will also lead Tesla, let's say within the middle-ish of the month, to that actual mean reversion on the weekly time frame, somewhere into this, at least the 320s, roughly the 320-ish region. MACD is still making higher lows. Like there's a lot of decent signs forming on the daily and the weekly. I do like the way the daily and the weekly are forming. I like the way that they're setting up. I think it's looking promising. I really do. It's just a very, very short term for the next week, let's say, ish. The 1 hour, some caution potentially is warranted. I think there's nothing wrong with that, especially considering the market, is looking a little bit toppy here. It's a little bit overextended. Got, inverted bearish hammer candles essentially forming. The market seems overextended. How far it is away from the market bias, right? It's very, very extended. The market is absolutely extended. So, wouldn't be surprising to see a bit of a reversion for the market back to the mean, roughly. Same with SPY. Back to like maybe the 530s for SPY, for instance, and then from here we blast off. That is my current expectation. Let's see how it goes. Obviously, nobody knows for sure, but that's my current expectation. So let's see what happens with that. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.